Don't you always love some family drama? So here's a case for you. There's a case between David Ang and Mark Ang, two brothers, in the Ontario Supreme Court that was heard in 2025. And my good friend Greg McNab from Denton's reported this recently. I do love all the cases he reports from the Canadian courts because they are quite unique. And in this case, one of the brothers alleged that there was an oral agreement to split the shares. And the other brother said, no, hold on a minute, we have a unanimous shareholders agreement, and that agreement has two very important clauses. One is what we call the entire agreement clause, and that clause means that if you and I agreed to write down stuff, and then we ended up sending emails to one another, or before we wrote down stuff, we sent emails to one another, or wrote other documents, or verbally agreed stuff, whether that is valid or not. So the answer to that is no. If there's an entire agreement clause in my shareholders agreement with you, then that clause and that agreement then governs our relationship with each other. So that was one argument for negating the verbal agreement for splitting of the shares. And the other one is what we call the paramountcy clause, which means that this agreement is really the be-all and end-all of our relationship, and everything that we need to know about each other, talk about each other, and our obligations and rights, basically in legal speak, are recorded in this agreement. So the brother that alleged that there was an oral agreement to split the shares ended up getting pushed out of the business and ended up in a position where he also had to pay $100K in punitive damages, etc., legal fees, whatever. So the moral of the story is that family businesses, on the one hand, whilst they can have their particular challenges, does not mean that you can take relationships with family members casually. It's probably best to write everything down and document it and treat everything like an independent business, and I've said this so many times. And David Phillips, on my last podcast on family businesses, was a great example of a family that's understood the pros and cons of family relationships and has ended up with giving the different siblings or the children in the family different portfolios and play on strengths rather than weaknesses and prepare for the future. The future is unknown. The present is all that we have in front of us to deal with all of the issues that we constantly face. Thank you so much for watching Think Tank. I'll see you next week.